Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. The new Hearthstone Festival of Legends balance patch has been a wild ride. 25 cards got buffed, a couple of cards got nerfed, so yeah, there's been plenty for people to try out. Unfortunately, not many of those things have been working out all that well, considering the buff cards, for example, Overload Shaman, yeah, that's still not a thing. Mage, those light show thing mages, they are still not a thing. But in this video, I'm going to take a look at 4 decks that are now stronger or otherwise just have reached popularity after the balance patch that weren't popular before that one. So let's take a look. First of all, we have Menagerie Warrior. Menagerie Warrior, I wrote about the patch recently for Hearthstone Top Decks, and in that article I talked about Menagerie Warrior and how it had great performance on the day of the patch, but on the other hand people were playing stuff like Naga Mages, Slideshow Mages, Overload Shamans, decks that just turned out not to be that great. So can Menagerie Warrior stay relevant? We are already seeing Menagerie Warrior win rates plummet, but they are still above 50% at the time I'm making this video anyway. So maybe Menagerie Warrior does have enough staying power to remain like a tier 2, tier 3 deck, but it doesn't look like it's a top meta contender. Either way, Power Slider is a fine card now after the buff, really carrying this archetype. And this is the best performing list, the list with the Golok Ravager in it. So yeah, if you want to play Menagerie Warrior on the ladder, then this could be something. And then a brand new deck that was made possible by the balance patch because of the buff to Death Blossom Whomper. 5 mana 6/5 Battlecry, draw Death Rattle minion and gain its Death Rattle. And yeah, this is a fun little deck built by Jumper originally, and it's a big Death Rattle Druid. So there's a bunch of Death Rattle effects in this deck, there's a bunch of big stuff in this deck, and then the deck just overwhelms you with big stuff and wins the game. Also Hedge Maze so that you can double up those Death Rattles, like the Stonewall General Death Rattle for example. So yeah, some pretty powerful stuff. There have been other variations of the team. There have been, for example, Druid decks that are running Thaddeus, also trying to get those Death Rattles and big minions, stuff like that going, but Chumbra's list seems to be the best performing one. This was also doing really well on the first couple of days of the new patch, and its performance has since declined. This deck does have some potential for longevity though, because this deck has an almost unique feature, that this is strong against Frost Death Knight and Blood Death Knight. But it has a bunch of matchups that are significantly weaker, so it will depend on the meta, it's quite polarized. But having good matchup against 2 of the main Death Knight archetypes, that is something that not many decks can boast. And this is something I really did not see coming, because the best Menagerie deck is not Menagerie Warrior, the best Menagerie deck is Menagerie Rogue. Yeah, this deck was built some days before the balance patch, but before the balance patch it was not delivering, it was just not strong enough. I'm not saying that the buff to MC Blingtron is what made this deck powerful, although it does help, because this is one of the few decks where you play MC Blingtron unironically, like you play it and those stats might be relevant. You're not using it as a game-ending combo and then just pew 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 pew, something small damage and then it becomes bigger damage, but you're actually using it just as part of your overall pressure plan, so those stats are relevant. So MC Blingtron buff actually helped this deck, but obviously the real star of the deck is Party Animal. And then you have Party Animal and you have Shadow Step, so that's kind of like Kelle's Shadow Step, reminiscent of that. And yeah, this one is not going down in performance at the moment, so it looks like Menagerie Rogue is here actually to stay. The interesting part is whether Menagerie Rogue is going to be better than Miracle or not. Miracle Rogue is also doing fine at the moment, but obviously 2 decks are very, very different. But yeah, really great to see Rogue playing with some other stuff for a change. And finally, the best new deck. Although new deck and new deck, this deck was built just before the balance patch hit, and this deck is really strong at the moment. It is Big Demon Hunter, making use of Fellscale Evokers, and then getting those Illidary Inquisitors, Brutal Annihilants, and all Fell breaks loose. I played a bunch of Big Demon Hunter during March of the Lich King, at which time it was built with Vandar, so this is quite a different deck. But what remains the same is that if you can all Fell breaks loose and get some Inquisitors and Annihilants out of that, then that just very often wins the game. So you have some early game, you have some Steno stuff, you have Astalor in this as well, defensive tools, and then those big demons, resurrecting those big demons. When you resurrect them, they act immediately because they have rush, and Inquisitor goes face if you go face with hero power, and just boom. Looking really, really powerful at the moment. And what's really interesting is this also looked powerful before the balance patch, but it was just invented slightly before the balance patch, so it didn't have time to really make its mark at that point. But right now, this is another deck that beats both Blood Death Knight and Frost Death Knight. And there's actually only like 2 decks that do that. Jumper's Big Druid and then this Big Demon Hunter. See the big team here. If you want to play with something new, this is the best option, but all 4 decks in this video. Some kind of a new twist to Hearthstone. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.